It had been years since I had spoken to my parents in a meaningful way. They had always held the belief that family was everything, but their actions never reflected that. Over the years, I had been the one to give, to sacrifice, and to show up when they needed me most. Yet, somehow, I always felt like I was never enough. It wasn't until one fateful phone call that I realized just how far they were willing to go to push me away. I had been doing well in my career, and life had finally started to settle into a rhythm. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. When I picked it up, I wasn't expecting what came next. It was my mom, sounding frantic and almost pleading. "Diana, we need your help," she said, her voice shaking. "Your father and I are in deep trouble. The house, we're going to lose it if we don't pay off the debt immediately." I was taken aback. My parents had always been proud, never asking me for anything. They were the type of people who held everything in, acting like they were always okay. But now, they were reaching out to me in desperation. "How much do you need?" I asked before I could think twice. My mom hesitated for a moment, but then the words came out, $20,000. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. $20,000 was a significant amount of money, but not an impossible sum for me to come up with. I had worked hard to build my savings, but this was a huge ask. Still, my heart softened when I thought about their situation. I had always believed that family was supposed to support one another, and despite all the years of frustration, they were still my parents. Without hesitation, I agreed. "I'll take care of it," I said. And just like that, I transferred the money, a decision I would later question. Within days, I received a message from my mom. "We've received the payment. Thank you, Diana. But we can't accept your help anymore." I was confused. "What do you mean you can't accept my help? I just saved your home." Her reply came, cold and unexpected. "We can't have you controlling everything. Don't come back. You've done enough." I was stunned. After all that, after I had helped them, they rejected me. I thought I had done something good, something right. But instead of gratitude, I was met with rejection. My heart sank. I had given everything for them, and now they were telling me to never come back. The weight of their words hit me harder than I could have ever imagined. Don't come back. Those words echoed in my mind like a constant reminder of how little I was valued. For years I had believed that if I helped them, they would come to appreciate me. I had sacrificed so much for my family, my time, my energy, my peace of mind, but now it felt like I had been nothing more than a tool for them to use when they were in trouble. I spent the next few days in a fog, replaying everything over and over in my head. How could they do this to me? I had given them $20,000, saved their home from foreclosure, and they treated me like a stranger. I had never felt so empty, so utterly discarded. The love I thought we had was an illusion, shattered in an instant. As I sat alone in my apartment, I realized something crucial. I had been so focused on doing everything for them, trying to make them proud, that I had neglected myself. In all my years of sacrifice, I had lost sight of what mattered. Me. I had never taken the time to ask myself what I wanted, what made me happy. Instead, I had become a shell of the person I was supposed to be, living in the shadows of my family's expectations. I needed to make a choice. I could either continue down this path, hoping for approval that would never come, or I could take control of my own life and build my own future, one that was free from the emotional chains they had wrapped around me. The decision was not easy. My heart still ached from the rejection, but the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I was not going to let my family's actions define who I was anymore. I was going to stand up for myself, for the first time in my life. And to do that, I had to let go of the guilt that weighed me down. I had to let go of the idea that my family's approval was the key to my happiness. The next day, I decided to make a bold move. I contacted a financial advisor and started making plans for my own future. I had spent years focusing on others, but it was time to focus on myself. I wanted to secure my financial freedom, my independence, and my peace of mind. It was a long road ahead, but I was ready to walk it, even if it meant doing it without the approval of my parents. I signed up for courses that would help me advance in my career, something I had put on hold for far too long. I started taking care of my health, something I had neglected for years in the midst of trying to meet everyone else's expectations. Slowly but surely, I was building a life for myself, one where I didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. But there were still moments when I missed my parents, when I wished things had turned out differently. I kept asking myself, would they ever realize the pain they caused me? Would they ever regret pushing me away? I didn't have the answers, and I wasn't sure I would ever get them, but one thing I knew for certain: I was finally taking control. And that felt like the first step toward real freedom. The weeks that followed were filled with a quiet determination. I didn't waste time moping or trying to reach out to my parents for answers. I had come to terms with the fact that they may never understand the weight of what they had done to me. What mattered now was my growth, my healing, and my journey forward. I was no longer the person who needed their approval. I was becoming the person I had always been afraid to be: independent, confident, and ready to take control. Every day, I spent hours working toward my goals. My career flourished as I threw myself into new projects, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was genuinely doing something for myself. I was excelling in areas I had once doubted, and that feeling of achievement, of having built something with my own hands, was worth more than anything my parents could have ever given me. But as I settled into this new chapter of my life, the loneliness began to creep in. I had distanced myself from them for my own emotional safety, but that didn't mean I didn't miss them. There were days when I thought about the family dinners, the holidays, and the moments I had once shared with them. I wondered if they ever thought about me, if they regretted pushing me away. One evening, I decided to take a break from work and go out for a walk. The cool night air helped clear my mind. As I walked down the quiet streets, I began reflecting on everything that had led me here. I had given so much of myself to my family, always putting their needs first. And now, it was my turn to put myself first. I passed a cafe that I used to visit with my mom, and for a moment, the memories came rushing back. The laughter, the stories, the way we used to sit for hours and talk about life. But now that all seemed like a distant dream, one that was never going to come back. The family I had once known no longer existed in the same way. It was during that walk that something inside me clicked. I couldn't keep holding on to the idea of what my family used to be. I couldn't keep waiting for their validation or for things to go back to the way they were. They had made their choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. The next day, I decided to take the final step in moving forward. I would no longer depend on them to fill the void in my heart. I didn't need them to complete me. I had already become the person I was meant to be, with or without their support. I reached out to a few close friends, people I had neglected during my years of focusing on my family's needs. They had been with me through thick and thin, and I realized how much they had supported me, even when I hadn't appreciated it. My relationship with them was real, rooted in mutual respect and love, not obligation. Slowly but surely, I began to rebuild my circle. I reached out to colleagues and even made new connections through networking. With every new person I met, I realized that I was surrounded by opportunities and the chance to create the kind of life I had always dreamed of. And unlike before, these were relationships built on mutual respect and understanding, not the fear of rejection. While my family's absence was still a heavy weight on my heart, I had come to understand something critical. I didn't need them to move forward. I didn't need their permission to be successful or happy. I had the power to create my own happiness, and the more I focused on my personal growth, the more I realized just how much I had been holding myself back in the past. As the months passed, I began to feel like I was truly stepping into my own. The overwhelming feeling of self-doubt and the constant need for approval had started to fade away. I had shifted from someone who lived in the shadow of others' opinions to someone who recognized her own value. I took pride in the way my career was progressing. I had worked hard to get where I was, and it felt good to know that the opportunities I was receiving were based on my skills, my talent, and my determination. I wasn't just being handed opportunities, I was earning them. But despite the success I was experiencing professionally, there were moments when I still found myself longing for the connection I used to have with my family. I had stopped reaching out to my parents, and I didn't know how to approach them anymore. There had been too much hurt, too much disappointment for me to just brush it aside. I couldn't allow myself to be hurt again. One afternoon, I was sitting at my desk working on a new project when I received a message that I wasn't expecting. It was from my mom. "Diana, can we meet? I've been thinking about you. I miss you." For a second, I just stared at the message. My heart started racing as I read the words. Could this really be happening? Was my mom actually reaching out to me after everything that had transpired? I didn't know if I was ready to face her again, but I also knew that this could be my chance to find some closure. I took a deep breath and replied, "Sure, we can meet. But I think we need to talk about everything." That evening, I met my mom at a quiet cafe in the city. As soon as I saw her, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, but also a part of me that still longed for that connection. She had always been my mother, and despite everything that had happened, I couldn't fully shake the love I had for her. "Hi, Diana," she said softly, looking up at me with a cautious expression. "I'm so sorry for everything. I've been thinking about what happened, and I know I hurt you deeply, but I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and for the first time, I felt like she wasn't just apologizing to make things right, but because she had truly come to understand the damage her actions had caused. "I don't know if I can forgive you just yet," I said quietly, but firmly. "You and Dad told me to never come back after I helped you, and for a long time, that hurt, but I've also realized something important. I don't need your approval to live my life. I've spent years trying to earn your love and your approval, but now I understand that I have to be okay with who I am, no matter what you think." Her face softened as she reached out and placed a hand on mine. "I understand, Diana. I've always known you were capable of so much more than I ever acknowledged. I was wrong, and I am sorry for pushing you away when you needed us most. You've always been strong, and I should have seen that." The weight of her words felt different than I had expected. They weren't an apology that would magically fix everything, but they were a step in the right direction. I wasn't sure what the future held for our relationship, but for the first time, I felt like we were on the same page. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Mom," I said, "but I'm learning to forgive myself, and that's what matters. I've built a life that I'm proud of, and I'm not going to let the past hold me back anymore." As we parted ways that evening, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I had finally let go of the hurt, the expectation, and the need for validation. My journey wasn't about reconciling with everyone who had hurt me. It was about reclaiming my own power. The next day, I received another message, this time from my dad. It was brief. "I've been thinking too. Can we talk?" I wasn't sure if I was ready to open that door just yet, but I knew that this was my chance to continue on the path I had started. This was my life, and I was the one in control now. As the days passed, I felt a growing sense of strength within myself. Every step I took, every decision I made, was helping me carve out a life that was mine, free from the expectations and judgments of others. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but there was a shift inside me. I was no longer afraid of the future. The future was mine to create, and no one could take that away from me. But just as I thought I had finally started to heal from the emotional chaos, another challenge came knocking. My dad called me one afternoon, and when I saw his name on the screen, I hesitated. The last time we had spoken, he had barely acknowledged what had happened. Now it seemed like there was something he wanted to say. I answered the phone, and his voice was strained. "Diana, I know things haven't been easy between us, and I know I hurt you by pushing you away when you were there for us. But I've been thinking about it, and I want to make things right." His words hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. My dad had never been the emotional type. He was always the provider, the strong one in the family, and rarely showed vulnerability. But here he was, acknowledging the pain I had been carrying for so long. "Dad, I don't know what you want me to say," I said, feeling the weight of everything we had been through. "I've already done my part. I paid the $20,000 and I stepped away because you told me to. I can't keep coming back and giving without getting anything in return." "I understand, Diana," he replied quietly. "And I can't expect things to go back to the way they were. But I need you to know that I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. I just never knew how to show it. I've been thinking about everything, and I want to make things right. I don't want to lose you again." I could feel the sincerity in his voice, but I wasn't sure I was ready to let go of all the hurt that had built up over the years. Forgiveness wasn't something that happened overnight, and I knew that this was going to take time, but I also knew something else. I didn't need to keep holding on to the past. I didn't need to keep letting their mistakes define me. "Dad, I don't know if I can just forgive you right now," I said softly. "But I'm willing to start again. We don't have to go back to what we had, but maybe we can move forward, one step at a time." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "I don't want to rush you, Diana, but I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm ready to make things right. Whenever you're ready." Hearing those words from him was more than I could have asked for. It wasn't a grand gesture, it wasn't a promise of everything being fixed instantly, but it was the start of something new. A new chapter that didn't require me to carry the weight of the past anymore. I ended the call feeling a sense of closure I didn't expect. I wasn't expecting everything to be perfect, but I had learned to take things one step at a time. My journey wasn't about fixing the past or seeking forgiveness from others. It was about forgiving myself and accepting that I had the power to create my own future. That night, I made plans to meet my dad. Not because I needed him to fix me, but because I was ready to let go of the bitterness and see where our relationship could go from here. We could never go back to what we were, but maybe we could move forward in a way that allowed for healing, on both of our parts. As I sat back in my chair, thinking about everything I had been through, I realized just how far I had come. I had faced rejection, loss, and pain, but I had also found my voice. I had found the courage to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, and to embrace the person I was becoming. And with each passing day, I was becoming more confident in my own skin. I was learning to love myself and realize that no matter what happened with my family, I was going to be okay. The days following my conversation with my dad were filled with introspection. I spent time reflecting on everything that had happened, the painful rejection, the years of trying to earn love and approval, and finally, the moment when I realized that I had always been enough. It wasn't about what they thought of me anymore, it was about what I thought of myself. I didn't rush to make any decisions about my relationship with my family. Healing takes time, and I knew that it was important to allow myself to process everything without trying to force anything. There were moments when I felt like I was ready to reconnect with my parents, and other moments when I felt like I needed more space. But the difference was, this time, I wasn't doing it because I needed their validation. I was doing it because I was ready. As I focused on my personal growth, I started to realize something else. I wasn't just healing emotionally, I was thriving. My career had reached new heights, and I was being recognized for my hard work. More importantly, I had built a network of people who genuinely cared about me and respected me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. These were the kinds of relationships I had always longed for, ones that were based on mutual respect and understanding, rather than obligation. I started meeting new people and forming deeper connections, both personally and professionally. I realized that my worth was not dependent on the love or approval of my parents, but on my ability to love and respect myself. I didn't need to keep proving myself to anyone. I had already done the hard work of rebuilding my life, and now I was reaping the rewards of that effort. Then one evening, I received another message from my mom. This time, it was simple, yet it carried a weight that I had been waiting for. Diana, I want to apologize. I've been thinking about everything, and I realize that I've hurt you in ways I never even understood. Can we meet? I was nervous. Part of me wondered if it was too soon, or if I was still too hurt to have an open conversation. But I knew that I had grown, and no matter what happened, I was going to be okay. I wasn't the same person I had been before. I had become someone stronger, someone who could face the truth without being overwhelmed by it. So I agreed to meet her at a park the next morning. As I waited for her to arrive, I took a deep breath, steadying myself for whatever was to come. The cool breeze brushed against my face, and I realized that this moment wasn't about the past anymore. It was about finding peace and closure, something I had been seeking for so long. When my mom arrived, she looked different. There was an openness in her eyes that I hadn't seen before, a vulnerability I hadn't expected. She sat down next to me, her hands clasped together, and we sat in silence for a moment. It was as if we were both gathering the courage to speak. "Diana," she said softly, "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, and I know I've hurt you deeply. But I want you to know that I regret pushing you away when you needed us most. I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. I just didn't know how." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a shift inside me. This wasn't about forgiveness anymore. This was about acknowledging the hurt, accepting that mistakes had been made, and understanding that we could still move forward, but only if we were both ready. "I don't know if I can forgive you just yet," I said honestly. "But I'm willing to try, Mom. I'm willing to rebuild this, but it will take time. I've spent so long trying to please everyone else, but now I need to take care of myself too." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. And I'm not rushing you, Diana. I just want to be a part of your life again, when you're ready." For the first time in years, I felt hope, not for a perfect reconciliation, but for a future where we could learn from the past and build something healthier together. I wasn't holding on to the same expectations anymore, and that was freeing. As we sat there in the park, talking about our lives and how far we had both come, I realized something important. Healing takes time, and it isn't linear. It wasn't about erasing the past, it was about learning to move forward with it. I had come a long way since the moment I had been rejected, and I realized that this journey was mine to define. I was in control now, and no matter what happened with my family, I had built a life that was worth living. The weeks that followed my meeting with my mom were a whirlwind of emotions. While there was still some lingering tension between us, something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was no longer caught in the middle of old expectations. I didn't need to fix anything or make amends for the things that had hurt me. I was no longer running in circles, trying to earn the approval of the people who had taught me that my worth was dependent on their love. My career continued to flourish, but more importantly, I started making time for the things that truly mattered. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my years of focusing on my family's needs. I learned how to prioritize my happiness without feeling guilty. I was no longer the person who lived for the approval of others. I was living for myself, and that was enough. One evening, as I sat in my apartment, reflecting on everything that had led me here, I realized just how much I had changed. The old version of me would have been afraid of what was next. I would have clung to the hope that my parents would finally see my worth, that they would finally recognize all that I had done for them. But now I knew the truth. I didn't need their validation to be successful. I had worked hard to get where I was. And it wasn't just about my career achievements. It was about the person I had become. Someone who could stand on her own 2 feet, someone who could make difficult decisions and still feel strong in her own skin. One day I got a call from my dad, asking if we could meet. For a moment, I hesitated, but deep down, I knew that I was ready. I wasn't expecting anything big. I didn't expect a grand apology or a declaration of love. I simply wanted to continue moving forward, even if that meant letting go of the past. When we met, my dad was quiet for a while, almost as if he was waiting for me to speak first. Finally, He looked at me with a sense of vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "Diana, I know I've made mistakes," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've pushed you away, and I didn't see the pain it caused you. But I want to make it right, in whatever way I can." I listened, not with the anger or resentment I might have felt in the past, but with a sense of peace. I had let go of the need for him to explain himself, and instead, I found it easier to simply accept his words. I had already forgiven him, and in doing so, I had freed myself. "I appreciate that, Dad," I said quietly, "but I've already found my way. I don't need to keep waiting for you or Mom to give me what I've already given myself." His eyes softened, and for the first time in years, I saw a flicker of understanding. "I know, and I respect that, Diana. I just want you to know that I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry for everything I did to make you feel like you weren't." We sat in silence for a moment, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like two people, finally acknowledging the truth of the past, ready to move forward. Not as they once were, but as they had become. As we parted ways, I realized that I didn't need to fix everything. I didn't need to have a perfect relationship with my parents to be happy. The only thing I needed was to keep moving forward, to continue growing, to continue evolving, and to keep trusting myself. I didn't need to be anyone's version of what they thought I should be. I had become the person I always wanted to be, a woman who was strong, independent, and proud of the journey she had taken.